Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here for the first time, welcome and congratulations for finding me. If you don't know me, my name is Angela and I find my paradise through reading, and I am so pleased and so excited. I can't even sit down. Look, like that's why I'm like standing up this time. I'm usually like sitting down when I'm, hanging out with you guys. I finished War and Peace. Let me try to sing. Oh my gosh. War and Peace. You see this guy? This guy. War and Peace. Yes, I did that. I finished it. Look at it. These are my tabs. Get that. My light's all. Ignore the light. Ignore the ceiling light. The lighting's going to be a little bit off, but I don't care because I finished War and Peace. Oh my goodness. Like all of this. It is so satisfying. And this is book number, where's my list? I just had it. I put it down. But this is book number 31 on my list. Well, not my personal list, okay? Okay, this is the 31st book I have read from the list of 100 greatest books ever written. And I am going off of the Easton Press, the list from the Easton Press. And I am just so satisfied and like just so happy that I finished this. This took me a lot longer than I thought it would, and totally my fault. It did not have to take this long. There were a couple days that I did not get to read. And I was purposefully taking my time because I was so intimidated by this book, and I wanted to make sure I understood it. I wanted to take the time to highlight, mark up, annotate, write notes on the margins. I was looking things up as I was going along, and I just really wanted to absorb this book, and I wanted to understand like why it was on the list of 100 greatest books ever written. And I can really see why. I can really see why this book was pretty awesome. And if you are intimidated at tackling this beast, don't be, give it a shot. And you don't have to understand everything. For me, political conversations, over my head. I'm sorry, it's not my jam. Military strategy, the movement of troops, regiments, and such, over my head. Geographic locations, okay, I'm not pulling out a map and trying to figure this out. I'm not familiar with Russia and these places, but that's okay. You know, I would grab bits and pieces of what I could understand, and what I couldn't understand, it was just kind of, oh, well, I'm here for the story. I'm not here for a history lesson. None of that. And the story was, it was incredible. These characters were so well developed. You have a hard time realizing that they're not real. Okay, they're real. They're real to me, and I can't imagine that they didn't actually exist. We have a lot of, in this story, we have some high society people. Oh, Prince Andre, Prince Nikolai, Princess Marie, and Natalia, Count Pierre, and just so many incredible characters. And this is in the Napoleonic Wars, and Napoleon, you know, he's strutting around like, I'm gonna mess with Russia now, you know, I'll just take over the world while I'm at it, let me just do whatever. So this is just how this war is affecting the Russia and the high nobility, but just the average everyday people, what their experiences were, what was going on in these wars, and what was going on at home during these wars. And this was so well written. The writing was amazing. It's very easy to read. It is not difficult language at all. So don't even worry about that. I actually tried listening to some of this through Audible, and I couldn't get with it. Like, I really had to take my time with it and absorb it and understand and go back and reread some pieces just to make sure. And because these characters are so complex and there are so many of them and their connections to each other, sometimes you do have to pause and say, okay, this person is related to this person this way. And so you want to like pause and connect the dots so you know why certain things are significant. But yeah, it just, oh, what they talked about in their experiences in the war, especially, really like touched my heart. And some things were so horrendous and very, very horrifying. Some terrible things. War is ugly. And one of my favorite characters, Pierre, I mean, my heart just broke for him throughout this whole book. I was always rooting for Pierre. Like, he was just so sweet. And he's just they describe him as this really big, fat man who they pretty much think is an idiot. And they don't take him seriously. No one kind of really likes him. And he's just not, he doesn't seem to fit in well with the high society folks. And then he ends up getting this massive, I hope this isn't a spoiler, but he ends up getting this massive inheritance and becomes one of the richest men ever, right? And that didn't even matter. Like, he was still, you know, people still kind of laughed at him and took advantage of him, and he was so naive, and he just kind of tried to go along with things and try to find his place in life, and was just always unhappy. And I was just always rooting for him because he seemed to just have the sweetest soul. And yeah, so when he ends up putting himself in the war, and not even as like an active part of the military, just kind of shows up at this battle and just walking around, seeing what there is to see and talking to people. And I'm thinking, get the heck out of there. Like, please just get out of there. And it was just making me so nervous. And there were so many things that he experienced that were so awful. And I was just scared for him. There were multiple times I'm like, okay, this is it for him. This is it for him. So there were some chapters where my heart was just wanted to rip out of my chest. I really cared for Pierre. And there were some characters in this book, say one of the deaths, and I'm not going to say who specifically because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read this book, but there was one major character death that I felt was so anticlimactic that I couldn't get with it. I was just stunned, and I was like, did this really happen? This can't be right. This doesn't make sense. There's no way he's gonna die, and there's no way that he's actually dying. Okay, now there's no way he's actually dead because it just, the whole thing, you're expecting this character to go down in a blaze of glory at least, and have like this big huge hubbub surrounding his death, and it just seems so normal and so anticlimactic. And I'm wondering if Tolstoy did that purposefully. Like, hey, it's not always this big drama, this whole, you know, sometimes it's just a very simple, oh, well, you know, boom, you're gone. Next, you know, and life goes on. There was another character death, a female who I did not care for, and I'm not going to say who. Again, I don't want to spoil, but it was funny because her death kind of just it seemed like it was just mentioned in passing, and I laughed to myself because I felt like I had the feeling I likened it to a character in a TV show that got killed off because nobody liked her or liked working with her. That's what it felt like. Like out of nowhere, it was just like, boom, yeah, she's gone. Guess what? So and so died, and that's you don't really hear much more of it. And it was something unexpected. They were fine, and then all of a sudden, oh, they took some medicine and overdosed and died. Oh well, what are you gonna do? It was just really weird to me. And though I wasn't sad to see her go, it was strange the way that was done. And again, was it done purposefully? Because sometimes it's just that's life. There might not be all this fuss and this fluff. Yes, things happen, right? Uh, so yeah, it was great. And if you've been following me, and I've been reading some of who is this? Jane Austen. Some of Jane Austen's books are in the 100 greatest books ever written, and I've had to read some of her works. And other than Pride and Prejudice, I wasn't super impressed with all this high society and who's going to marry who and who's got what connections and marrying for privilege and for status and who makes this much money per year and what's the size of the dowry. I usually don't care about those things. For some reason with her books, I just don't care. I cared in War and Peace. I was all about it. I wanted to know who was going to marry who. I don't know why I cared so much. Maybe because these characters felt so much more real to me, and it didn't seem so, I don't want to say petty or like surface level or, oh, that's rich people problems. It just didn't seem really connected with the heart, I think. It's so hard to pinpoint what it is that made me care so much more about what was going on in War and Peace in these relationships and, people in their positions and how they were going to make things work. And there were a lot of, I was all about the romance and the relationship drama and who was going to end up with who. And I was surprised. I guess from the beginning of the book, I would have never guessed how it would end up. And couples that I was kind of rooting for and expected to end up together kind of didn't. And it was fun. It was a good time. It really was. I cannot believe I finished War and Peace. Oh, wow. Would I read it again? Probably not. Most likely not. If I were to read it again, it'd probably be an abridged version. But it was good. It was good. I can't see myself ever forgetting this experience or these characters and what happened. I even went as far as reading the epilogue, which I recommend because the story does continue, although, and this is a pretty long epilogue. I think it was about 100 pages of epilogue. Yeah, ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's see where, oh, man. Was this like 200 pages? Okay, so here's the epilogue. Okay, and in this version, it starts on page, let's flip this, I'm curious, 1130. And it goes all the way to 1215. So a little, I guess a little less than 100 pages. And I'd probably say maybe 75, 90% of the epilogue does go into just history and just a lot more information. If you're into that kind of thing and you're really curious, go for it. I kind of, at that point, I was admittedly just skimming through the information and picking out the story. I wanted to know what was going on with the characters that were left. And it ended. I was very satisfied with the ending. I really was. Once I finished with the characters in the epilogue, I was totally satisfied. I didn't feel like I was left hanging. I didn't feel like I wanted more. Like the Count of Monte Cristo. Okay, first of all, the Count of Monte Cristo kind of ruined probably every book for me, because I feel like I'm comparing everything to the Count of Monte Cristo, and I just, look, if you've read it, you know, I don't think anything's going to beat that book, honestly. I don't see that happening. No, I think the Count of Monte Cristo probably ruined every book for me, and nothing's ever gonna, it's not gonna reach that level of awesomeness. And so, yeah, this was a good book. Won't read it again. Very satisfied with it. I'm glad that I read it. I'm glad that I can knock this behemoth off of my list. Every time I see this on the list of 100 greatest books ever written, and I've been working on that list for a couple years now, I just kind of like, yeah, no, I can't do that. And I'll pick a different book, and then I'll go through my list again, and I'll see that book, War and Peace. I'm like, oh gosh, I can't do it. And then I'll pick a different book. So I do not have to feel any longer that I am being a coward or that I'm putting off something, and I did have high expectations because I have heard that this is a good book, and I just, for some reason, I was so intimidated just by there are just so many reasons I guess I was intimidated. It's not so much the size, because I do like big books. I love big, long books. I think it was because I'm not really familiar with this author. And I knew this was Russian, just Russian literature. It's going to be difficult. I knew there were a lot of characters. I knew this war, okay, and Napoleon and all this stuff. And I just thought it was just going to be so heavy and complex and boring. And it wasn't. And it wasn't. So if you haven't tried it, give it a shot. And it's broken down, and the chapters are so small. The chapters are just a couple pages. So if you want to tackle it very slowly, and you read a couple chapters, read 10 pages a day, and just see if you get into it. I mean, you don't know unless you try, right? You may not know what you're missing out on. And I am just I love his writing. His writing was amazing. And I'm looking forward to reading another one of his books, because he does have another book. Oh yeah, look, I have it here. That is on the list of 100 greatest books ever written. So I have here Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. And I don't know if I have to figure out, this little book. This is a long one. About 1,000 pages. So I don't know what book I'm picking next for the 100 greatest books ever written. I was looking through my list earlier today, trying to already plan my next read. I am 31% of the way through. And of the books on that list that I have, they're big chunkers. Don Quixote, I have that here, and that's a big chunker. David Copperfield is on the list, big chunker. Paradise Lost, again. Let's see what we have here. Ooh, and the Inferno. Anna Karenina, that's on the list. Jane Eyre, or Air. That's on the list, and I have it. And they're just all big books. And after reading something like this, I'd like something that's just not so big. I thought for sure The Great Gatsby was on that list of 100 greatest books ever written. I was like, okay, that's going to be a great next book because I have it here and it's not that big, but it's not on that list. I don't know what to do. So I'm kind of looking here and I don't know. I'm definitely going to have to figure out what I'm going to read next. What am I going to tackle on that list? I don't know. Or maybe I won't do another book this month from the list and then just read up on some of the books that I've been holding off on reading because I really wanted to focus on this book. Usually I'm reading 3 or 4 books at a time, but with this one, I said, I'm just going to slow read this. It's going to be the only thing that I read, and I'm just going to take my time and focus on it. And so now that this is done, I am maybe read some fun, simple, easy books that aren't going to rip my heart out of my chest. No, I'm lying. Rip my heart out of my chest, because that's always, I think, you know, when a book makes you feel so much and it makes you anxious or makes you cry or laugh or, you know, be scared for the characters, then it's a good book. It's a good experience, I think. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me and listen to me go on and on about how I finished War and Peace, War and Peace, War and Peace. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you the satisfaction that I have from this. I just can't. I can't even explain how full I feel. And I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning with a smile on my face that I'm not going to be lugging this big, heavy thing to work. My bag is going to feel so light. But anyways, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you've read War and Peace and if you enjoyed it or not. Let me know if you're planning to read War and Peace, if hopefully this inspires you to tackle it maybe and get into it. At least be curious. So, and let me know what you're reading, and if you have any recommendations, I always love to hear from you. Well, that's all I have for you. Take care and happy reading. Bye.